Hey guys, Jake Carlson here, host of the Modern Leadership Podcast. Are you ready to focus on amplifying your leadership superpowers? Let's go! Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Modern Leadership, the podcast where we learn from experts and elite achievers about leadership and designing your own success. I want to start today with a quick story from 2010. Oh, that seems like a long time ago. We moved to San Jose, California for a job and arrived in the Bay Area late October during the World Series. As luck would have it, our San Francisco Giants were in it. I say our. My wife grew up in the Bay Area. Her father, my father-in-law, began his career as a therapist for the Giants. So, yes, we love the Giants. On Halloween night, Game 4, we took our little ones out for trick-or-treating and were blown away by the Giants' support. Every house had the game on. Every other kid was dressed as a ball player, and every parent had an earbud in, including me, listening to the game. There is nothing like seeing your team become world champions, which came the next night. I will never forget it. But what does this have to do with leadership? Let me introduce a couple of awesome leaders, Jackie and Kevin Freiberg. The Freibergs are international best-selling business authors, speakers, and consultants. They are with us today to talk about their brand new book, Bochy Ball, The Chemistry of Winning and Losing in Baseball, Business, and Life. For those of you trying to catch up, Bruce Bochy was the manager of those 2010 World Champion Giants, as well as the 2012 and the 2014 World Champion Giants. Let me brag on this book for just a minute. This book is beautiful, designed like a coffee table book with those large glossy pictures, a foreword by Chris Berman of ESPN football fame, and an afterword by the great Willie Mays. This book defies convention for business books as it unpacks the career success and gutsy leadership behind San Francisco Giants manager Bruce Bochy, a three-time World Series champion. Bochy Ball is a playbook for coaches, athletes, sports fanatics, and business leaders who want strategies for building team chemistry and performing like champions. But enough from me. Please welcome Jackie and Kevin to Modern Leadership. I'm so excited to get into this book. I have it right here on my desk. But before I do, Jackie, can you tell us just a little bit about your business and what you do that led to this point in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been committed to writing about what we consider to be the best businesses that really create an opportunity for the best people to do their best work and then ultimately to make their corner of the world a little bit better. So we've really been on a hunt to discover some gutsy leaders who can, create cultures and build chemistry within their organization so that they become, places where people want to work and want to make a huge difference. And we've been really fortunate to study leaders like Herb Kelleher at Southwest Airlines, Ratan Tata at the Tata conglomerate, in addition to a number of others. And we have had a friendship with Bruce for probably 20 years, Bruce Bochy of the San Francisco Giants. And the more we've learned about Bruce and his experience within baseball, it's just become crystal clear to me and to Kevin in particular that Bruce is as good as any CEO that we have met, we have written about, and we get the chance to talk about. So.
Well, and you guys have been speaking and talking on leadership for a number of years. What's your company name and kind of what do you guys do?
Yeah, mostly, Jake, we're in the keynoting business, so we spend most of our time writing books about the leaders Jackie just talked about and then traveling the world, speaking at conferences and talking to professional associations, large corporations, small boards who are really interested in leadership, innovation, and change, and want to dial up the volume on those three things in their businesses.
And you've been doing this for a number of years, right?
We have been doing it. We've been doing it for, close to about 30 years now. I don't know, did he tell you the name of our company?
No, I don't think he did.
That was the question, right?
Yeah.
So the question, The answer to your question is, we do business in a couple of different contexts. San Diego Consulting Group is the consulting part of our business, and we just recently launched a new company to really help us promote this book in addition to the books that are kind of in us that will be written in the future. And it's really a company that is defined as epic life, epic work, because we believe that you can't compartmentalize your work and your life. If you're engaged in work that matters, ideally you're engaged in epic stuff, and then that leaks out to your life. And doesn't everyone want to live an epic life and do epic work?
Absolutely. And that's kind of become a tag word a lot lately, this epic life, this epic word. And so I wanted to just a follow-up question with you on that. What does epic mean to you?
I think for us, it's doing work that has meaning and significance. It's making a profit while making a difference. If you look at, we cut our teeth on Southwest Airlines many years ago. They were very much into this before it was cool to talk about it. But, they've created a lot of wealth among their employees, but they have, through their Ronald McDonald houses and whatnot, they have had a huge impact in the world. And so, they've always never apologized for being profitable, but they've taken that profit and said, let's go make a difference in the world, and let's help our employees fight a noble, heroic cause. In their case, it's, the business of getting people around the country conveniently and in an affordable way. So, there's a cause there that people fight when they come to work, and that's epic.
And I just want to chime in very quickly. I want your listeners to realize that epic doesn't have to mean that you're absolutely changing the world. One of the things that we know to be true about people today is, look, there are social issues that are really hungry for help all over this country, our country, the United States. And, people have been asked, who do you think is most likely to help improve those social issues that need help, government or business? And people, hands down, will say, absolutely, business is going to help, but not just any business. Businesses that are profitable and businesses that are purpose-driven. So if you get to work for a company that is having an impact in your circle of influence, that's fun, epic stuff. If you get the chance to take your life's vacation, and it happens to be, the town next to yours, or climbing the mountain that's in your community, and you feel like that's epic, look, that's epic. Epic is relative to anybody who feels like there's an adrenaline rush and there's a difference that we make to make a little piece of the world a little bit better.
And I love this focus that you just brought up there, and that is companies that are going to change the world, companies that are going to have a big impact moving forward are companies that are both profitable and purpose-driven. And I would almost say that this is kind of a chicken and an egg scenario where the purpose-driven companies become profitable, and only profitable companies can really reach out and support communities in need, support families, and really move agendas forward. And so I really love that. Now, Kevin, I got to ask you this. Why this book now? Because Bochy is a San Francisco hero, a 3-time world champion, but then he followed that up with the worst season in franchise history. So why now when it comes to this book, Bochy Ball?
You want the honest answer, Jay?
Yeah, the honest answer.
It's because it took us 2.5 years to really research, dig in, and do the kind of job that we wanted to do and we thought he deserved to write the book. Took me 2 World Series to convince him that we should write a book. He's a very humble guy, and after the 4th, he had enough people coming and saying, hey, how have you done this? What's the secret sauce? And finally agreed to doing it. But, once he agreed, then we had to dig in and do what we do, and it took 2.5 years of our time. So the timing, wasn't great. But I got to tell you, if there's a silver lining in the worst season in franchise history, I think we didn't plan on doing this, Jake. We would have preferred to have them win a 4th World Series and write about that. But there's so many businesses that go through hard times, so many marriages, families that go through hard times and struggles. And what we've learned with this book so far, it's brand new, but people are really intrigued with that tagline, the worst season in franchise history, because they're going, we've had tough times too. We want to know, how do they deal with it? How do they slug through it? How do they put one foot in front of the other? So it's turned out to be kind of an intrigue for people.
And
I couldn't agree more. As I picked up a copy of the book, and I'm a huge San Francisco Giants fan, and I love the 3 World Series in the 5-year span. But it's really this idea of, we got to keep working, and we're not always going to have ups. We're going to have downs, and how do we overcome that? And I think it's real for people because they realize to be a success in business and in life, they're going to have periods of down. And seeing how the Giants come out of this is going to be really fascinating.
You're absolutely spot on. And, I would also add to Kevin's answer just a little tiny bit in saying that you nailed it. This isn't just about baseball. This is about winning and losing in business, in baseball, and in life. And look, we've been doing this for 30 years, so we have buckets of information. We've got content. The 2-year project was about really wrapping the content that we've been developing for 30 years together in the business community. How do you then wrap the baseball examples and the baseball stories around that content? And, that's what took the 2 years and what we had to dive into. And thus we came up with, some strategies to say, look, this book is really about, it's about character, it's about culture, and it's about chemistry. And those 3 things, when you do them really, really well, those 3 things can help your people perform like champions, whether you are building a family, whether you're building a team, or whether you're building a business. Those are your superpowers, Jake.
And in the intro to this episode, which you didn't get to hear, I spent a little bit of time loving on this book. I think it's a fascinating read. I think the copy with the glossy pictures is just beautiful. But I want to make something clear. This isn't just a Giants Love Fest book. This is a serious business book taking principles taught by one of the great managers of all time. And I had to chuckle as I flipped the book over and saw the back. I love what Daniel Pink says on the back, where he says, this book is so good that even a Dodgers fan will love it. And the reason I had to laugh, I've lived in San Diego, I've lived in San Francisco, I now live in Arizona. I've been a Padres, a Giants, and a D-backs fan, and the one thing that unites all 3 of my NL West teams is our mutual disdain for the Dodgers. And I love this book because it's not just a Giants love book, but really it's taking the principles taught by one of the great managers in baseball history, Bruce Bochy, and really talking about the business principles. So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about how this book is laid out? Because I think it's unique in how you laid it out, chapter-wise or section-wise.
Yeah, happy to. By the way, I told Dan Pink, I said if I could come through the phone and kiss you, I would, for that creative comment he made about the Dodgers, because we're right there with you. We live in San Diego and Sundance, Utah, but we were Padres fans when Bruce was there, and we're Giants fans now. But you're right, the common enemy has been the Dodgers. So we appreciate your comment. We laid the book out. I think the best way to describe this, Jake, is it really reads like a dialogue between Jackie and I and Bruce. And so you get a couple of people who've written books and spent their lives consulting to C-level executives and writing about renegade companies that are winning in the marketplace. You've got a 3-time world champion manager, and really, I think don't take our word for it, but if you just talk to people in baseball, I talked to Bobby Cox, I talked to Tony La Russa of the baseball fame, and certainly Joe Torre, and all of them would tell you that Bruce is probably the greatest manager of his era. And so what we tried to do in the book is create a dialogue between Bruce and us about these principles that Jackie talked about around character, culture, and chemistry. And so you've got, we have 190 photographs throughout the book. We've got over 180 really lengthy Bruce Bochy insights, where he's weighed in. And some of them, Jake, are about winning and what they did really well. And I think you'll have to tell us, but I think there are times when he gets really vulnerable and says, I could have done that different, and I could have done that better, and I really screwed that one up. And and people can learn from that too.
Which I think is a real unique thing about looking into the life of Bruce Bochy, because on the field, he's very stoic. He seems very serious and stern a little bit, but this is really a raw look at some of the way he thinks during some of the ups and some of the downs. And the book is laid out in these innings, and I want to focus for the rest of the show that we have here on just one of the innings. So you have 9 innings plus a warm-up, and within each inning, you have 3 or 4 different chapters that kind of talk about principles that relate to that. And the one I'd like to focus on, if you guys don't mind for a few minutes here, is inning number 2, which is called Giant Fit, Targeting the Right Stuff. And in chapter 7, which is called Beyond Talent, See the Whole Person, there's a quote that you have in here that I think really jumps out to me, and that is, there's 2 types of people. There's those that add and multiply, and those that subtract and divide. And Jackie, could you give us a little insight on what that means, what those 2 type of people are within our work environments?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been writing about that for years now. And, one of the things that we like to say is you hire for attitude and you train for skill. And, in baseball, you have to hire for both. And quite frankly, in all businesses, you have to hire for both. It's that attitude, though, that will either suck the life and the energy out of everybody that's around them, or intensify, multiply, be contagious, and make it so much better if it's positive. So we really leaned on Bochy and his philosophy too, because he's a proponent of all of this and saying, look, we can look at what the numbers are saying. We can look at the statistics. We can look at the sabermetrics and all that stuff, and that'll tell us how well they perform skill-wise, talent-wise. But we also have to make sure that when someone comes into this clubhouse, and the same is true for business, when someone has the right experience and the right skill and the right talent, but they come into the business and they've got a pissy or a bad attitude, that'll drain the entire team. That'll whether you're business or whether you're baseball. And so it's not just about coming in and fitting into the culture, but it's also about fitting and then furthering the culture, making it better, not taking away from it.
And one of the things you do in the book that I think really helps the reader to kind of do what you just described is you have these little sections in each chapter called Do Something Now. And as you were talking about that, I was just scanning through the page, and on that same page, we see this Do Something Now. It is much easier to draw out, refine, and reinforce something that's already there than it is to build it from scratch. And Kevin, I'd like to give you that little intro and kind of hear your take on how we as leaders can do something now within our work environments when it comes to drawing out and refining and reinforcing rather than creating.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you got to take every leader has to, we have that cliche, one size fits all, right? And I think it's a terrible misnomer for leaders. One size fits one. And so I think what we've learned about great leaders, and Bruce is no exception, is he really tries to mine the story behind the story. So, Jake, if you were playing for him, and we've seen this with Herb Kelleher, we've seen it with others that we've written about, there's this idea of, I want to know what makes Jake tick. I want to know what turns Jake on. I want to know what Jake's annoyances are and his hot buttons are. And all of us have a story behind the story, right? There's the story we present to the world, and then there's the underlying interests that really motivate us and drive us and cause us to reach higher. And I think what you find with leaders like Bruce Bochy is they're trying to figure out that story behind the story. And then, what motivates a Pablo Sandoval, Bruce's former third baseman, from Timmy Lincecum to, Cy Young winner to a Buster Posey, radically different. They're different personalities. They're different people. And so all of those characters I just mentioned have incredible gifts and talents and goodness built into them. But I think it's really taking a tailored approach to saying, okay, who are they and how do I draw that out of them?
And that, I think, leads us perfectly into the very next chapter, which is this character is core, or the chapter is called Strengths of a Giant. And I want to lead in with this paragraph. It's the first paragraph of that chapter, which says, imagine making 80 plus trips a year with your coworkers. And so for the listeners out there, I want you to just think about this. What if you had to get on the road, take an airplane ride or a bus ride, stay in a hotel 80 plus times a year with your coworkers, spend 6 weeks with them at camp, and then you look at it and you go, look, it's fraught with danger because if it doesn't work out, it could be a really long and miserable journey. And then you go to the next paragraph. Consider that this trip includes 25 guys from different countries who think, act, speak, and feel differently. And I think within our own work environments, we all come at this job or this career, this place of employment with different backgrounds, different cultures, different highs and different expectations. And now you put us all into this mixing pot called work and really expect us to come together. And so when it comes to that, Jackie, and I think about this Strengths of a Giant, how does character play into this melting pot of employment?
That's a great question, and I think lots of people struggle with that. But you nailed it by literally vetting out the chapter. The bottom line here is we think really, really good leaders, really gifted leaders, are interesting. And leadership in our mind, Jake, isn't just positional. I'm not saying that you got to be C-suite, you got to be the manager or the coach. Look, everyone has an opportunity to step into leadership as a part of a team. And so as a member of the team and stepping into leadership, everyone has to be inquisitive about what other people bring to the table. Go back to what Kevin just said. What's the story behind your story? What's your background? What are your values? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your fears? What are your insecurities? When we can get to that place with our teammates or our colleagues and coworkers, what we begin to realize is, look, we all have differences, but if we can find the commonality in who we are at the core, oftentimes we can make those differences work for us so they complement each other. We can collaborate more effectively, and we can strengthen each other through our differences versus, depleting each other through our differences.
Jake, to add to that really quick, one of the things Bruce has always said to his players is he said, look, I don't want you to just tolerate the differences in this clubhouse. I want you to look at the guys who are most different from you and ask, what can I learn from him? What does he have to teach me in the way he goes about his business and the way he plays and the attitude he brings to the clubhouse? What do I have to learn from them? Which is a much more aggressive, proactive stance than just saying, hey, Jackie and Jake are different and they just sort of need to tolerate each other and kind of work with each other. That's not the kind of chemistry that wins championships.
And that was vivid for me, not just in his team. Bruce does that in life. We have our sound engineer because we've designed and developed an audio series. So it's sort of Bourbon with Bochy. We're having just a conversation with him in an audio format that complements the book. And, the sound engineer is the guy behind the scenes. And he walks into this, this audio experience with Bruce and I, and Bruce automatically says, so Will, where are you from? Well, where'd you get that accent? He's interested in all people, trying to find out a little bit of their background so that he can find a way to, guess what, engage and connect with them. Imagine how much better every single organization would be if every leader who had a position of authority would find a way to engage and connect with their people, to find out then how to draw good things out of them.
Jake, the hard part of that, I'm not going to go very long here because you probably have other questions, but, the hard part of that is it requires emotional labor. And there's a lot of leaders that are so focused on the numbers and running their business. And I get that because we're bottom line people too. You got to get a return on investment. You got to get results. But the emotional labor that a Herb Kelleher or a Bruce Bochy or some of these others want to go through or are willing to go through is what gives them the unique and special cultures that are winning in the marketplace that others don't have. Because, I could compare a Herb Kelleher to some other airline executives who will remain unnamed, who weren't willing to go through that emotional labor, and their cultures show it.
Well, when you talk about emotional labor, the one thing that comes to my mind is this trust. And I think baseball is such a great metaphor for business because in baseball, you've got to trust. Look, you have your pitcher, you have your opener or your starter, you have your middle relievers, you have your closer, and each one of them has to come out and do their job. And the rest of the team, there's nothing that they can do besides support. They just cheer them on and really give them support. And then when the ball is hit, it's hit to the shortstop. We got to trust and rely on the shortstop to do his job. And I think it's the same within our business environments. We have to have that trust. And I think as you put in emotional labor, you really build that trust among your teammates so that when the ball is hit that way, or the big sell, or the opportunity comes to that person within your work environment, you have that trust to really make sure that they're going to take care of what needs to be done. And that leads me to this question on preparation. So there's this quote from Bochy on there that says, I've told our players, if you're not prepared, it's not pressure you feel, it's fear, because you're competing against guys who are constantly getting better. And so I wanted to spend just a minute talking about this fear and this competition against other people that are trying to improve and get better at all times.
Yeah, I think one of the things I just got off the phone with him before we got on with you, and he's had his first full day of spring training today with the guys, and he is back on it. He is back on preparing and focusing on the fundamentals. And one of the reasons for that, I said to him many years ago, I said, Bruce, these guys are all Major League Baseball players. Don't they kind of have the fundamentals down? Don't you expect them to have the basics? And he said, no, because the pressure in which they play and the fishbowl in which they play, with everybody watching, creates so much pressure and so much intensity that if the preparation to have the basics down isn't there, then you can't be creative, you can't be spontaneous when a ball game calls for that, So he's very demanding in terms of these guys coming into camp and getting through camp, really doing the mental preparation, the physical preparation, and the conditioning, because as you know, by the time you get to the dog days of summer at the end of July, it's the guys who have gas in the tank that are the most creative and that end up, taking you into the postseason.
And I'll add to that just very, very quickly and say, look, whether it's business, and we also, we've been training people to give speeches for 30 years now, and the biggest reason why people have fear around speaking in public is because they have not done the necessary preparation. Same thing in business. If you have not done the necessary preparation, you walk into a meeting or you walk into some sort of pitch, and guess what? You're operating out of fear and insecurity. And when you operate out of fear and insecurity, you are not operating in your best place. Nor will you play in your best place, nor will you speak in your best place.
And Jake, I would tell you that in Bruce's world, the more those guys study video, the more you know a hitter's tendencies, the more you watch how they respond, where they are in the count. All of those things are data, right, that inform a pitcher what he can or can't do. And so Bruce's whole thing is, you can never know enough about your competition. You can never know enough about your opponent. And if you study and you continue to learn and never think you've arrived, then you'll have more swagger out there on the field and you'll overcome that fear.
And I'm a big process and systems guy. And it's interesting that you and I we're having this conversation because a couple weeks ago, I interviewed a guy, a creativity expert. And my question to him was, look, I believe in, systems and processes, but I'm afraid that these system and processes will take away creativity. And his response was, the more you know the nuts and bolts, as you said with Bochy, the more you study film, the tendencies, the more you can be creative when you're called upon to do it. Because you don't know when you're shortstop and that ball is going to take a funny hop and how you're going to have to react to it. Now, Jackie, Kevin, this book is absolutely amazing. I think you've done a tremendous job of taking an entertaining sport and a great Hall of Famer and really diving deep down into his mindset and how it plays out in the workforce. I can't recommend this book enough. I know we've spent a little bit of time together today. Before I let you go, I'd love to give each of you one last shot to give us one parting bit of advice. How about Jackie? parting bit of advice from Bochy?
I would encourage anybody who's listening who wants to learn about building team chemistry to go to the bochyball.com website and take the team chemistry quiz, because you just fill out your answers and you will get responses, and it will tell you whether or not you are performing like an all-star team, or whether you're headed for the DL, or whether your team chemistry is toxic. And it won't just tell you that, but then it will also give you some specific chapters to go into and some specific recommendations that will help you turn up the volume and raise the bar on the kind of team chemistry you want to create.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we're going to link that up on the show notes page so that all the listeners can go over there and check that out. And Kevin, any last bit of advice from you?
Yeah, I would say it comes from me and from Boch. He has been just such a proponent of teaching his players, play for something beyond yourself, choose service over self-interest. And in his case, that gives him huge flexibility. If you've got a Timmy Lincecum who's a starter, a 2-year, 2-time Cy Young winner, who is willing to go into the bullpen, and not even willing to go into the bullpen, but to go into the bullpen and be excited about it and seeing how he can handle that new challenge. It's really what helped them win the World Championship in 2012. And Bruce would tell you it comes back to assembling a team who want to make other players better and who choose service over self-interest. And I can't think of two character traits that are more important than that in building a successful business.
And we just covered 2 small chapters in a 34-chapter book that's nearly 200 pages. Like you said, glossy pictures, all about leadership, not just in business, but in life, not just in baseball, but in everything that we do. Kevin and Jackie, I can't thank you enough for spending a little bit of time with the Modern Leadership audience. Thank you for all you do.
Jake, thank you. Thanks for being such a fan of the book and for diving into it. That's music to our ears, and we're grateful for the time with you.
Yeah, thanks for your interest, Jake.
One of my favorite interviews that I've had on the podcast, not just because I'm a Giants fan, which I am, as well as a Padres and D-backs fan, as we talked about in the episode, but because I love this book. I love business books, and I was telling Jackie and Kevin prior to recording that I don't know what to do with this book because it's so beautiful. I don't want to dog-ear it. I don't want to mark it up and underline things, but it is chock full of amazing content. And as you know, I love baseball. In fact, I think baseball is a tremendous metaphor for what we're doing in our businesses. And where do you play on the field? Are you the opener? Are you the starting pitcher? Are you the catcher that protects the plate? Are you that shortstop that's getting all those tricky one-hop bounces? Or are you the center fielder that's called upon to leap fence high and save the home run? Or maybe your position is designated hitter. You come in and score the runs when necessary. No matter what role you play in your business, you need to see yourself like a ball player. You need to realize that the skills that you have are skills that your company, your team needs. And they need you to go out day in and day out and have the game of your life. They expect you, they trust you to do what is required to be successful. And that is why I love this book. As I mentioned, it's broken up into the 9 innings. There's 34 chapters. There's over 200 glossy pictures that go along with these business teachings from Bochy, but not just from Bochy and the Giants, but from all different types of business leaders, sports, and athletes. I think you'll really love this book. And of course, everything that we talked about, including how to pick up a copy of Bochy Ball, can be found on the show notes for this episode, which are at jakeacarlson.com/ML64 for episode 64. And again, can't thank Jackie and Kevin enough for coming on the show and imparting their wisdom. I want to wish you the very best of days, an even better life. Play ball. You're awesome. Thanks for listening to the Modern Leadership Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Speaker Jake, on Twitter at Jake A. Carlson, and of course the website, jakeacarlson.com. See you there.